Hello, I'm Victoria Hanson from Vix Media. Today I'm going to tell you a story, and that story is about how I got into outsourcing. Now, I know there's some information on the site that tells you about what outsourcing is and how we go about it and how we can teach you how to do it. But I thought it might be interesting perhaps for you to know how I got into it. I was not always an advocate for outsourcing. In fact, if you ask any of my family and certainly friends that I've had for a long period of time, those that know me from when I started my business back in 1991, you will hear them say that they could never imagine me actually hiring anybody, let alone someone offshore. And that would definitely have been the case, because I was one of those people, and I still am to a certain extent, that needs to physically have control of everything that I do. And I'm also somebody that when I decide to do something, that I will go into it in a big way. I will learn everything there is to know about it before I actually start doing it. And I certainly won't get out and start teaching it until I do know it back to front. That comes from being a teacher, I think, in the background. So let me tell you how I got into outsourcing, and it was purely by accident and also a necessity at the time. I have another website called Black Book Cooking, which you may or may not be aware of, in addition to Vix Media. Vix Media is actually quite new, and that is another whole story in itself, how I got into this sort of business. But originally I'm a foodie. I'm a high school cooking teacher, and I went online. Actually, the first time I went online was in 1994, just when the internet was really getting started. And I've been online ever since in one form or another, starting out with very simple websites that I built myself. I learned how to do, moving up to the more sophisticated ones that I now have. And when I was building Black Book Cooking, which was also under a number of different names before that, around about 2008, it was 2008, 2009, the site had just launched, and on it were about 4,000 pages at the time. That had been built up over a period of time. And each of those pages, or most of them, had an image. And those images came from an image library that I had done a contra deal with. And they had provided me with access to use those images, providing I linked back to the website, which I did with each image. But in about 2008, 2009, they changed hands. So you can see where I'm going with this. And in the process of doing that, the new people who came on board decided that they didn't particularly want to continue with the agreement that we had. They didn't think they were getting enough benefit from it. My traffic wasn't brilliant in those days, and so they didn't see me as high profile enough. So they gave me an ultimatum. They said I could either pay a lease fee for those images, of which there were more than 2,000, of $60,000 a year. Well, I nearly fell off my chair. I wasn't even paying myself anywhere near that amount of money. The business wasn't making that sort of money, so there's no way in the wide world I could afford it. But they were an integral part of this website because it's a food website, and these images were amazing. The site that I got them from, the library, is or does specialise in food photography. So the photographs were absolutely amazing, and they made my site look brilliant, and that was what was the draw card for quite a lot of people. Obviously my recipes were pretty good as well, but the images had a lot to do with that. So in the process of doing all of this, I realised there's no way in the wide world I can keep those images, but I also can't afford to replace them either. And so what I did is I had a look around on the web, and I looked at a couple of other image libraries, and quite a few of them offered subscription. So if you paid for a subscription for a month or 2 months or whatever it might be, you could download anything up to 25 or 30 images a day. Now, it had taken me nearly 3 or 4 years to accumulate those images and create that content, so I'm not going to replace it in 3 months. I had to get some help, and I really couldn't afford to hire someone locally to do it at the hourly rates that we have on average here in Australia. So I was literally forced to go offshore, and I thought, well, you know, if I just hire someone to do this, and it's a very simple little task, then maybe I can manage it. So I posted a job on one of the outsourcing portals, and I was flooded with people. I was almost overwhelming. I couldn't cope, and I didn't realise at the time that it was because of the way I had written my job spec. There is a method to that in itself, which took quite some time to work out. But needless to say, I did actually make contact with quite a number of contractors that were all relatively good, but none really had the skill that I wanted for what I needed for this. They needed to not only be able to source images that look like the ones that I had, but also be able to optimize them and then upload them to the site, because I didn't have time to do any of that either. So I had to trust them to go straight into my CMS and do this work. So there was a whole host of things here that were really very important to consider before I went down this track, but I had no choice. It was either that or shut down years of work, and I wasn't prepared to do that either. So what I did was post the job, and I got quite a few applicants, and I went through them and picked the ones that, one, applied to the job in a way that I would have applied to a job, so that the way they wrote their application was important, and also because they had a percentage of the skills that I wanted. So they might have been able to do research but may not necessarily have done anything with CMS, or they might have known Photoshop but hadn't actually done research. So I went through a few of them, but out of all of them, one particular guy came back and said, I can do this job. Mind you, they all say that, I can do this job, but they can't. Not all of them can. But he hounded me, and he kept writing to me, and I said, look, I'm sure you can, but I need to assess a number of people, so once I've done that, I'll come back to you. Well, he just kept hounding me, and he said, look, just give me a chance. Show me exactly what you want me to do, and I will do it. And I thought, yeah, how am I going to show you that? You're in the Philippines and I'm here in Australia. And then I remembered I had Camtasia. So I thought, I wonder if I could do a screen capture, a simple one that just showed exactly what I wanted him to do. Like on the website, I had all of the contents and all the images put into spreadsheets, because that's how I do my work. I'm very anal. Some people call it organised, some people call it anal, but I am very organised. So all of the content that I had is in fact already in spreadsheets. So it was a matter of just looking at where they are, going up to the link and having a look at it on the site. So I showed him. I created this Camtasia video, which was very simple, not a lot of panning and zooming, not a massive amount of editing. And I posted it on the website, and I sent him the link. I said, have a look at this. Could you replicate that? And he said, yes. I said, all right, I'm prepared to give you a trial. One hour, that's it. That's all I'm giving you, 1 hour. And I want to see how much of this you can do in that hour. So I uploaded all of the spreadsheets. He had links to go to the website, so he wasn't looking at the back end, he was only looking at the site at the front end. And these are the 3 sites, for library sites, that I'm prepared to pay subscriptions for once we do this. I said, now the only way this is going to work, you've got 3 months to do this, but you're going to have to find all of the images first and list them all. And then when we know we've got them and I've approved them, then you go back on the site and I pay for a month of subscription. So you've got 2 months to source, and then a month of downloading, and then we have to get them up on the site. And he said, yep, I think I can do that. Well, I gave it to him. 1 hour later, I was blown away. What he achieved in an hour, I don't even think I could have achieved in that hour. And so I hired him on the spot. I said, now you are on trial. I need to make sure that you can do what you've said you're going to do and that you can actually fulfill it. And he said, yep, no problem. Well, he's still with me to this day. He is one of my most loyal and my most accomplished contractors. I've taught him all sorts of things that he didn't know before, and on top of that, he goes out and teaches himself. He's absolutely brilliant, honestly, the find of a century. And I managed to achieve my target of what I needed to do, a little bit over the 3 months, but still not too bad. And they quoted me $60,000 for those images. I managed to replace them from 3 other different video and image libraries with the help of my contractor for less than $5,000, all up. So that included the research, the searching, the compilation, the downloading, the subscriptions to the sites, the whole thing. In fact, I don't even think it was that much. I think it was probably closer to about 3,000, but still, 3,000 to 60,000, there's a big difference there, and I now have use of those images for the whole time that they're on the site. So that was my foray into this, and once I did it once, and he worked out so well, I had made contact with 2 or 3 others on there that I hadn't done anything with at that time, and I thought, I'm going to give them a go. You know, one of the dilemmas you face when you work for yourself is that you have to do everything. You have to be, you know, the person who makes the cup of tea in the morning, that vacuums the carpet, and then at night, you know, you're negotiating sponsorship deals and whatever else. And there really aren't enough hours in the day. There just aren't. But you know, you can't replace yourself. It's impossible to replace yourself, because you've spent so much time accumulating all of these skills, you're almost unhireable anymore. But rather than hiring one assistant who might have maybe 3 or 4 of your skills, for the same price, you can hire 10 people who can take over 10 of your skills and do them all and focus just on that skill. And that's what I found the most beneficial with outsourcing. And you know, I don't just have offshore outsourced contractors. I have contractors here in Australia as well. There are some things I can't pass off. I can't get voiceover done by anyone that doesn't speak English and with an Australian accent, because that's what I'm looking for. I can't have the copy written done by somebody who doesn't understand the context of the content well enough. So I have to have an Australian copywriter. And I also have some other people here in Australia who manage my contractors and do things as well. So, you know, I have got an even amount of both, or maybe, you know, 1/3 to 2/3, 2/3 offshore, 1/3 onshore. But It has completely changed the way I do business. It has saved me an enormous amount of time and anguish, and also allowed me to actually have a life in and around what I do. I don't know if you've read the book, The E-Book by Michael Gerber, but he talks about working on your business as opposed to working in your business. Well, I was working in my business all of the time, and there was so much stuff I didn't even see. But as soon as I stepped back and brought other people in to work on the business, I could then see the bigger picture, and it has enabled me to just grow exponentially in a very short space of time at a cost I can afford. And don't get me wrong, they are cheaper overseas in most countries than they are in my country. That's a given. But I have done some research, and their hourly rates are commensurate with what they get paid for their award rates in their country. So we're not cutting out anything by doing this with them. We're actually giving them work. And you know, I've become very close to my contractors. I know the names of their children. I've helped out a couple of them with operations they've had to have. I send them bonuses when they do great work. I help them buy equipment when they need it, if they can't afford it. So I do what I can to help them in their lives. They've become part of my family, and they've certainly made my business change from being a little one man, one woman operating business to something that is global. I mean, let's face it, I make products and create content and information that I want the whole of the world to buy and use. Why shouldn't I also hire from the same pool? Thanks so much for joining me. I hope that sort of helps you a little bit with how I got into outsourcing, and I'm sure that once you just dip your toe in the water just that little bit, then you'll be able to think on the same lines. I'm certainly here to help you if you do. I'm Victoria Hanson. Thanks so much for joining me today. I look forward to communicating with you again very, very shortly. Thanks for watching.